Good evening. It's Sunday, the 5th of July, and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast, the podcast where we explore matters of local, national, and even international political importance in a calm, reasoned, and balanced way. I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury. Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Simon, and looking forward to another dreadful, biased, lefty, ranting kind of one-eyed approach to politics, which we've both been accused of in the last 24 hours. But those who know us and bother to listen know we try and bring a bit of my headstrong yang and your sobering yin to matters political.
Something like that. And good evening to our viewers and listeners. Please do give us a like, follow, a comment, or a subscribe wherever you're catching us. Please do join in on the conversation. You can join that in on YouTube or on Facebook. We'd love to hear what you think as we go ahead. So it's quite a lengthy speech from Andy Burnham, delivered in Manchester. Shall we?
Well, I guess
in?
we ought to. So I guess the premise tonight is that obviously Andy made his pitch for the Labour leadership and therefore by default to be Prime Minister, and we kind of think since then everyone's run away and it looks like it's going to be a coronation. So we thought we'd sit down and hear what the King of the North had to say and try and pick the bones out of it. So run VT.
Are you ready for this? I'm sounding like I used to sound when I used to DJ across this great city, and I'm probably doing that because I'm missing it so much. I'm missing all of you. I am missing all of you, missing this place, the people. You were just brilliant to me in my 9 years as mayor. I could not have asked for better backing. You were there at my back all the way through, and I will never forget what this place did for me. It's been such a wrench to leave that I've had to get special permission from what people in Westminster call my Manchester clothes. I've had to get special permission to wear them this morning. Sorry, Kemi, about that. However, I have bowed to public pressure on one front. I have bought some new running shorts. It was either do that or change the decency laws, and I opted for the former. But I can't tell you how glad it makes me that we meet at this big moment in one of my favourite places on earth, the People's History Museum. It holds real significance for me, and it's not just because one of my old coats is in a glass case upstairs, and can you believe it, comes off second best alongside Michael Foot's infamous donkey jacket. It's because these galleries tell the story of our country better than anywhere else. How through time it has not been run in the interests of the many, and how ordinary people have fought to change that status quo and make it fairer. Today, we must take inspiration from that history and get ready to repeat it. The time has come to build the broadest possible coalition of people to lift Britain back up to where we all want it to be. What hope can we have that it will be different this time? That's the question I would be asking if I was a voter right now. It's the one I want to answer as clearly as I can today, and in doing so, give the new direction the country is looking for. After 10 years of political turbulence since Brexit and 20 years of falling living standards since the 2008 financial crash, Westminster hasn't been working for people, and it hasn't been working for a very long time. In fact, it is broken. And as a result, the country isn't where it should be. It is stuck in a rut, and clearly we can't go on like this. My generation of politicians, including me, must take responsibility. We haven't been good enough. But instead of being honest about that, the parties have continued with politics as usual, finger-pointing, point-scoring. Now, that might matter less in a world where people's lives are getting better, but when they are not, it is dangerous and destructive of what remains of public trust in politics. We cannot go through another decade like the one we have just had. We need a new determination to raise living standards of every single person in this land. And we must accept that, to do that, to fix the economy and the country, we need to change politics, and we need to do it now.
So far.
Well, a very jovial start, wasn't it? Quite a different and more relaxed tone. You know, Sir Keir, Dryer, son of a toolmaker. Yeah, Andy playing to a home crowd. What were your thoughts on the opening?
Well, I thought it seemed a much more natural tone. He certainly seemed a lot more comfortable, and more personable and human. And I don't know whether that's just like you say, he's playing to a home crowd, or whether in comparison, kind of, Starmer is trying to be so many other things that he's not. I don't know. I just feel that this kind of, it seems like a speech, someone you can carry on listening to. Which is kind of half the battle for the first minute. So
I guess so. The only other thing I did think, he stopped just short of using the reform broken Britain.
Yeah,
he used the word broken. Politics is, so a little bit strayed close to their arrangement. And of course, I've got to apologise for the very triggering nature of the C word. Coalition, a broad coalition of people.
yeah.
A decent enough opening salvo. Shall we?
Okay. Well, let's hear what happens as he lays out the problem.
So let me state my clear intention as I put myself forward. True to the motto of this city, I am going to do things differently. I am going to break with the more of the same approach that has got us here. I am going to give Britain the circuit breaker it needs. By building a more collaborative politics in Westminster, by taking power out of the centre and putting it in the hands of the people and places who can use it best. And in so doing, creating a new sense of agency, possibility and hope flowing around the country. We will make politics work for you and the place where you live. I know it can be done because we have done it here. When I started as mayor in 2017, we set about building a new approach, a new politics based on the exact opposite of the Westminster approach. Place first, not party first. Problem solving, not point scoring. Long term, not short term. A decade on, it's incredible how much we've been able to achieve by working together instead of fighting against one another. The Greater Manchester Way is based on strong partnership between all sectors, public, private, community, voluntary, academic, faith, and our trade unions. We ask everyone to face the same way and then pull in that same direction together. Let me give you an example. When we realised the last Conservative government had done something significant by introducing 45-day work placements for young people linked to T-levels, we set ourselves the mission of finding one for every young person who wanted one. Over the course of last year, we rang round our businesses in the city region and, with the help of hundreds of companies, delivered our goal of 1,000 extra work placements. That's 1,000 extra young lives changed every year, and it shows what a place can do when it works as one. For Britain to get back where it should be, those same principles need to be applied now to how we run the country, pull in the same direction, move forward together. But let's not kid ourselves, this is not as easy as it sounds. Westminster and Whitehall are set up for conflict, and they require radical change if the country is to get back on track. I left Westminster a decade ago with the Mayor of the Liverpool City region, Steve Rotherham, because we could see it simply wasn't working for the northwest of England and the people here, and indeed other parts of Britain, the same thing.
So, quick pause there. What do we think?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, you know, what could you object to in that? You know,
Yeah.
more localism, you know, power closer to the kind of people, and you know, this is Andy Burnham's trump card, isn't it? He has done very well in Manchester, and you know, he has got that. You know, Manchester is an interesting place because it has much more of a Tony Blair New Labour feel about it. It's not anti-business. It's not, you know, it's not anti-growth. It's, you know, it's kind of, it's where he is, you know, it's where his kind of strong suit lies.
Okay. Let's. I'm just conscious of time. Let's kind of move on as he calls out what he believes what he feels are the failures. So let's listen more.
The Parliament I returned to on Monday is full of good people, many of them here in the audience today, members of Parliament who've joined us. And they are working hard every day, trying to do the right thing for the places that they represent. But it's hard, it's too hard for them to make change. Why? Because power is not in the hands of those places that they represent, but held by an insufficiently accountable, outsourced state. We are one of the most over-centralised countries in the world. And worse, that over-centralised heart of the country is not pulling in the same way, but in different directions. That is the reality of Westminster now, both within our parties and between them, and between the departments of Whitehall. I'll be honest, I was worried about what I found on my return last week. It is a more fragmented, disjointed place than the one I left, and frankly, unhappier. I will work hard to change that culture, leading from the front and showing how things can be different. Letting MPs be authentic representatives and not using the whip system to create fear or close down debate. Involving more people in the work of the government and drawing on the breadth and depth of talent and expertise our party has to offer. While the political direction I set is not up for negotiation, I will build an inclusive team at the very highest level so that all parts of the party and the country can see themselves reflected and represented in it. And may I say, I will not announce those decisions on appointments, certainly not today, and indeed not until the end of this process. So until then, feel free to discount the wild speculation in circulation. Message for the back of the room there. Good morning, Mr. Mason. I will reach out to other political parties to find as much common ground as we can and build that more collaborative approach I spoke about a moment ago. So, a greater sense of unity in Parliament will then allow us to give a clearer sense of direction to Whitehall. I was struck by recent comments from ministers expressing their deep frustration at the Whitehall turf wars. Like Parliament, the civil service is full of good people trying to do the right thing, but they are held back by the structure and culture in which they have to work. It is too adversarial, and too much time is wasted with departmental silos battling each other and battling the Treasury rather than getting things done. How can the country pull in the same direction when that is the reality at the very top? And as mayors, I'm sure I speak for the front row here, as mayors we have felt similar frustration over the years when those same departments constantly push back against our legitimate requests to improve our places by devolving a fraction of the power and resources they hold. The truth is this: the country spends too much time arguing and not enough time doing. I'm not sure this Whitehall culture could ever be justified. It wasn't justified when I was a minister almost 20 years ago, but it certainly can't be justified now. The stark imbalance in resources between national government and local government is holding back growth. If councils can't fix potholes, what chance do they have of bringing forward major regeneration schemes to get growth going? While national government has got bigger, particularly since the pandemic, local government is threadbare and without the resources to fulfil even statutory responsibilities. This is not just bad for councils and the areas they serve, it is bad for everywhere. It is bad for London and the South East. The whole country suffers when the regions and nations are not meeting their potential, and Londoners are left with an overheated economy and an overcrowded housing market. It is actually bad for national government too, because we will never get the growth up to the level Britain needs unless every single postcode in the land is set up to contribute to it. This country hasn't thought in that way before, but with the Makerfield test at the heart of decision making, it will do from now on.
Okay. So, if councils can't fix potholes, what chance do they have of bringing forward regeneration schemes to set growth? Not using a whipping system? And a playful nudge in the direction of the media at the back?
Yeah, I mean, it's that difficult one, isn't it? Because it's that element of, I guess, when it comes to the centralized, everybody thinks government, the government's got it wrong, government's got its priorities wrong. But surely the infighting within government is caused by tough economic times. They're all fighting for slices of pie, aren't they? And I guess whilst philosophically I understand what he's saying, and the kind of councils are threadbare. When I look at local council job boards, they don't seem particularly threadbare just at this point, based on the number of roles they're advertising and what they're paying. So I'm not sure I'm buying into his local is good and central is bad narrative, but I guess as somebody who has been successful in you know in you know in kind of in Manchester, I guess that was always going to be his shtick.
Yeah. By the way, we literally only got one eye of you on the screen because you're right there. Yeah, there you go. You're
Sorry.
fine. And that's all right. You'd found a comfortable place for you, but it was
Yeah. No,
for those watching the show. Yeah, I just found those were very interesting and stark points. How much they will translate into day-to-day governance, but it seems like he's building a case that actually government should be doing less because more local government should be doing more and having the funds and the ability to do it. So he's essentially making the case for devolution. But the things about not using a whipping system, that's that's good if it works if you're bringing your party with you. I mean, he's also obviously got a massive majority on his side, so it's not like he's kind of pushing
it's a
for
zero.
that.
It's a zero risk game, isn't it? Because on the votes that truly matter, you know, does the whipping system stop people from voting against their own government? Well, most of the time it's suicide if they. Do you know what I mean? It's that they may not be whipped into voting. So, yeah, a little bit. Let's hear some more. Let's see whether there's a bit more substance to this.
Okay.
To make it happen, we will bring about the biggest rebalancing of power our country has seen. It is time for Whitehall to accept that growth cannot be ordered from the top down. Instead, it can only be nurtured from the bottom up. It comes from having the power at ground level to make a real difference, from a clear shared vision that everyone can understand and investors can back. It comes from running sound finances, as we have done here in Greater Manchester, which in turn gives businesses the stability and the confidence to invest, increasing their productivity and adoption of new technology. It comes from placing our universities at the heart of local economies, as all the mayors do, and bringing the innovation-led approach through start-ups and scale-ups. It comes from committing to decent infrastructure in all parts of the UK and getting national investors to back the aspirations set by regions. It comes from giving people the security of a good home and good employment so that they can be as productive as possible, from good mobility and an ability to afford the basics. And it comes from not leaving everything to the market, but public intervention where necessary to set higher ambitions for towns, as we did in Stockport, and kickstart the process of change. This is Manchesterism. I think I even saw the Mayor of Liverpool clapping at that. It is a vision for good growth and a rejection of the old trickle-down model. And like the ideas this museum celebrates, which grew here and changed the country, so all parts of the UK should now be given the chance to develop their own version of the same, focusing on the things that matter most to them. Good growth in every British postcode. What a sea change that would be in the way UK government thinks about our own country. Places no longer forgotten or written off, as they have been in the past, but supported to make the best of their assets, seeing the positives in all places. And there are positives in all places, in all postcodes across this United Kingdom. Let's always remember that. Powers for our rural economies to address issues specific to them, like inadequate transport. Powers for areas undergoing industrial transition, like Port Talbot, Scunthorpe and Aberdeen. Powers for our proud coastal towns to reimagine themselves for the 21st century. And yes, more powers for London too, over education and housing, so that London can do more for itself and remain the world's greatest capital city. And you heard that here from Manchester. All of it backed by the stability that comes from sound public finances, as I said before, and the discipline of our current fiscal rules. I hope people can begin to feel, hopefully you can, some of the excitement that comes with the change that I'm setting out today. It promises a new era of possibility for Britain, possibility in places that haven't felt it for a very long time. And I know, because I heard that from people on doorsteps in the by-election. But let's give them that feeling, that ability to hope, to aspire to better. The change will be the biggest change in our lifetimes to the way the country is run, and it is consistent with the 2024 manifesto.
So, consistent with the 2024 manifesto, discipline of our current fiscal rules.
Fiscal rules. He said he could feel the excitement building. I got excited. Love a fiscal rule, me.
A different website.
Fiscal discipline, eh?
Sound public finances. Not leaving everything to the market, but public intervention where necessary.
Where necessary.
Rejection of trickle down.
Rejection of trickle down.
I mean, that phrase, I should imagine, would please a lot of people to the left of Andy Burnham.
It would do, but it means nothing.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. Because there's an element of, you can talk about trickle down, but there's an element of there's a pot of money. The pot of money is determined by the size of the fiscal rules. The fiscal rules means that the pot of money is only a finite size. So your cake is the size of the cake. You can decide who gets a bigger or smaller slice of the cake, but the cake's still the same. So you can give bigger slices of cake to local government, but if you're going to give it to local government, then you've got to give smaller slices of cake to somebody else. And what killed Keir Starmer was he couldn't get his party to agree. Everyone could agree which slices of cake should be bigger, but nobody wanted any slices of cake to be smaller.
I think the difference is Burnham is making the case for how to make the cake bigger.
Well,
rather than just talking about growth being a number one priority, he's these aren't finite details, but these at least kind of seem to be starting to shape an idea of how he intends to find and create the opportunities for that growth.
That I haven't heard yet.
Okay.
All I've heard is more money for local government, more local government, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But I haven't heard anything yet that's going to make the cake bigger. But there might still be some to come. And I've got a thread that I think runs through this. I'm going to save till the end.
Okay. I noticed the key thing is talking about growth cannot be ordered from the top down. It needs to be nurtured, which I don't think anybody could or would disagree with. Do you notice the kind of the mentioning of good homes, good job, good employment
in every postcode in Britain?
I'm the cynic in me is starting to wonder what's the definition of good in that scheme. But let's not talk too long. More Andy.
More Andy.
We will create a more streamlined state with a clearer purpose to power up all parts of the country and put a laser-like focus on growth and regeneration, good growth. The change will be driven through the Prime Minister's office in an extended operation based here in Manchester. But here's the important thing. It will only be based here. The job of Number 10 North will be to make power flow into the Midlands, into the southwest, into the east of England, and yes, into London, as I said before, as much as into the northeast, Yorkshire and the Humber, and here in the northwest. It will be about offering new opportunities to extend devolution in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland by taking power deeper down. The people of Dundee and Bangor feel just as distant from Holyrood and the Senedd as they do from Westminster. Now get this. Number 10 North will be the nerve centre of a rewired Britain. It will be the conduit through which we redistribute power and resources across the UK. It will coordinate all parts of government at national and local level to agree a long-term economic strategy and help all places set new growth ambitions. It will be given a mission to strive for equivalent living conditions in all parts of Britain, borrowing from the German Basic Law. It will make place-based collaboration the new operating principle for UK PLC, requiring all government departments and agencies to support strategic and local authorities with staffing and resources. And let me say this very directly. And let me say this very directly. The days of Whitehall fighting the devolution power into the regions and nations are over, for good.
So it seems that Andy Burnham is auditioning to be the first Prime Minister in history to give themselves less power. And I'm not saying I disagree with him, but
I'm not
it's
sure that he is.
No? Well, you don't think
No.
that giving trying to move all of this power out of Westminster doesn't put less of it under his direct control? No? You sound, or maybe are you even more cynical?
No, it's not a cynical thing. It's the element of it's that element of, it's how much do you believe is possible. Scotland has had devolution for an awfully long time. It's had the powers to set its own tax levels. It has pretty much been able to, it has had very high levels of devolution. It's done very little with it. So there is that element of, he talked bravely there about a streamlined government. Well, any of us who've worked in industry or business know what streamlined means. What does it mean, Simon?
It means less people.
It means less people. So I am not, forgive my, and perhaps this is cynicism, but the civil service is heavily unionised. The unions pay Labour's bills. I am not convinced how effective a Labour Prime Minister is going to be at putting massive streamlined efficiency gains through central government to free up the resources that are then available to give more power locally. If we remember some of our episodes recently on local government reorganisation, if you remember, the savings come from getting all of those 14, 16 local authorities to come together and find efficiency gains by working collaboratively. I don't remember us being terrifically optimistic about that being able to deliver quickly.
Well, no, I mean, he speaks to timelines in a minute. So kind of put a pin in that. But I just find it an interesting. It's an interesting departure. I mean, if you can genuinely move more government functions out of Whitehall, then to me that that actually overall sounds like a good thing, but the $64 million question is, can you do it?
Well, and I guess there's just one final point on that, which is
Yeah.
fascinating because for me, Whitehall, central London, enormously expensive,
Yes.
housing crisis, massive wage inflation, unaffordable. That's part of the challenge of central London, isn't it?
Yes.
If you look at the growth in central Manchester, property prices have skyrocketed. You know, that success creates its own infrastructure and ecosystem, which eventually prices out the people. You create your own hotspot. So when, you know, if I am a senior civil servant earning £100,000 a year on a final salary pension in London, and you offer me the opportunity to go and work in number 10 North, well, you know, I'm going to be looking for a nice house in somewhere in towards number 10 North. It potentially will just. I'm not convinced it's not just going to move the problem elsewhere.
Well, yeah, but even I get what you mean about an increase in demand in those areas, and you know you get the same sort of thing with satellite towns, essentially, you know,
Yeah,
becoming basically, you know, places where people
dormitory.
live, and then they transport into kind of major cities, but it's still going to be cheaper than London.
Yeah, central London. But I
Yeah.
think that's the point I'm making is that
Mm.
if you look at, and again, I don't want to be derogatory, but if you look at the nice areas in and around Manchester, you know, those have seen price inflation. You know, if you go back 10, you know, he's talking about 2008, that you've seen massive rises there.
Mm.
You know, and it's that difficult, you know, it's that challenge, isn't it? You know, we you know, his thing, good places to live. You know, well, you know, we all know
Mm.
that your, you know, location drives the cost of your house, and the nicer the place is or is perceived to be, the more you have to pay for it. But
Well,
let's hear.
it'll
Yeah,
keep Kirsty and Phil busy. Let's press on because
exactly
the
that.
clock is ticking.
I have had 10 years of fighting the Whitehall machine, blocking this place's progress, the progress of people here, and I am simply not prepared to accept the same for any area coming after Greater Manchester. The whole of Whitehall will now be required to get behind our places and work together with them to make quicker, more joined-up decisions. Ours will be a 10-year mission to raise living standards across the land. To do this, Number 10 North will support the regions on 3 clear tasks: reform of essential utilities, reindustrialisation and the regeneration of places. On utilities, we will ensure all parts of the UK are able to take greater public control of essential services like water, housing, energy and transport, learning from the model that has transformed our bus networks here in Greater Manchester. We will set out 10-year plans to bring down the cost of these essentials to individuals, families and businesses. On reindustrialisation, we will support every region to set clear and credible industrial ambitions and provide the support to achieve them, encouraging more cross-UK partnership between places with complementary industrial clusters, as Cambridge and Manchester have done on life sciences. We will consolidate public and private investment at a place-based level and help all areas establish good growth funds, as we have done here in Greater Manchester. We are such an inventive country, and going forward we can be the world's leading innovation nation. This is the key to higher growth And I want more world-beating British manufacturers and service providers at the frontier of new technology and exporting to the world. I will back our scientists, technologists, entrepreneurs and creatives, as I have done here, and show how Britain will be the innovation nation of the next decade. We will get better at capturing full value from their ideas for UK PLC by changing the culture in Whitehall when it comes to backing British industry. For too long, UK public procurement policy has been based on chasing cut-price deals around the world, rather than helping our own British-based suppliers become more stable and competitive. No more. From here on, every pound raised from taxpayers will work harder for them, and that approach will apply fully to the Defence Investment Plan. We will make sure that all eligible public contracts are subject to proper social value weighting. And we will do that to make sure British-based companies are in a better position to win those contracts. This change is essential, given the need to build our own resilience in places across the country in an increasingly uncertain world. We need to safeguard sovereign manufacturing and production capability across the country in critical sectors like steel, defence, energy, food and farming, rather than just being prepared to let it go, as we have sadly done in the past. In return, we will recycle maximum benefits for our communities and our residents. For instance, by requiring a much greater supply of 45-day work placements and apprenticeships for young people. I take very seriously the findings of the recent report by Alan Milburn. We need a complete rethink of how we support the next generation to succeed, and it has to start with the education system. The days of a school system configured entirely around the university route will be brought to an end. University is great for those who want it, but when are we going to focus on the life chances of those kids who want something different? When? The country hasn't done that for a long, long time.
So I'll pause there before he kind of gets into more about education. So 10-year mission?
10-year mission. Makes him Captain Kirk, doesn't it?
No, that was a 5-year mission. I have been
Was it?
thinking, to be fair, all the way along, that this could do with those listeners and viewers that are Star Trek fans who remember the intro music to Star Trek Enterprise, Faith of the Heart, sung by Russell Watson. You could kind of play this as you could kind of play that in the background. I saw the thing about bringing utilities into greater public control, so not public ownership.
Yeah, that
greater
one.
public control.
Yeah, that one baffled me a bit, if I'm honest. And now I know why Dead Ringers, the satire program on Radio 4, keeps referring to buses, because obviously that was one of his key arrangements. The whole reindustrialisation thing, good, would love it. It is always that balance, isn't it? Because it's the piece where, we want decent workers for decent wages, for decent housing, decent this, decent that, which is great. So should we manufacture it in Britain? Too expensive, mate. We'll get it done in China or India, where they pay the people, pennies. Which is slightly short-termism. So that social value piece, I think, is that's something, when you're looking at contracts, it's not just what you're paying for the product, but if you're making it in the UK and those people are paying income tax and they're, not claiming out of work benefits, there's a whole set of sums which makes that a better deal than going abroad. So that kind of thing. Was he standing a little bit? Did he have a hat on with
No.
MGGBA? Make
What?
great
Make
Great Britain great
no,
again.
no. There
But
was
you see where I'm coming from? You know,
yeah, there's an element to it, but he's making that in a kind of different kind of logic. I was going to talk a bit about the kind of closing bits, but as he's going to go on, I think speaking more about education, we could probably pick those
yeah,
pick those up there. But yeah, the public contracts subject to social weighting. I mean, obviously depends what the detail is, but it
in
makes a
principle,
bit of sense.
in principle,
Yeah.
it's a good idea.
Mm.
It is always that challenge, isn't it? And I've talked about it many times. Which is everyone. Everyone. We want our high streets to thrive. Where are you ordering your stuff from? Oh, Amazon, because it's much cheaper. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Love Woolworths. When was the last time you went there? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Education, education, education.
People have argued over many years for an education system based on parity between academic and technical, and that is what we will build, giving every young person growing up here a clear path into a re-industrialised Britain. Where young people need mental health support, it should be provided as part of in-work support. And we will answer the call from the mayors, and particularly the Mayor of the North East, for devolution of employment support and changing the way we support and sustain people in employment, working much more through our community and voluntary sector at a grassroots level, working with organisations people trust to help them, rather than going to places that they fear. This is the difference that the mayors can make, and in doing that, we will reduce the welfare bill in a way that is fair and lasting and helps people move forward. Another way to do that is by repairing the public housing stock. Britain has lost almost 1.5 million council homes since the 1980s, and around the same number of people are now on housing waiting lists and have been there for a very long time. As a result, the country is in a housing trap. We are forced to chase rents in the private rented sector through the benefits system. When governments try to control these costs by freezing local housing allowance, it makes families homeless and places unfunded pressures on councils when they have to pay for temporary accommodation. Britain's housing crisis is having a ruinous impact on its public finances. So, working with local areas, Number 10 North will oversee the biggest council house building programme since the post-war period. We will use public land, vacant public land, to reduce costs. Let me just take you back to when I grew up here in the 1970s, and Steve Rotherham and I have written about this in a certain book. But when we were growing up here, amongst the friends we had at school, there were two things that were the foundations of working class aspiration. A council home, a secure home that was the foundation for everything, and then good technical education. And those things have been taken away in the decades since. So no wonder so many young people struggle to make it work and then don't make it work. Don't blame them. Blame ourselves. We haven't been giving people this stability, this ability to get on in life. And it's time we did and brought back working class aspiration, the chance of somebody growing up here to be everything that they can be. And that's what we'll do. And also make this a city where no one has to leave to get on in life, or any of the other cities represented here today. That's what this new era is going to be all about. a sense of hope, of possibility, that things are achievable that you might not have thought were before. And having this focus on council homes again and building them in all parts of the country, it will represent a decisive shift to a more preventative, productive state, adopting a national housing first philosophy, as has been pioneered so successfully in Finland. If you don't give people a good home, what chance have they got of having a good life? What chance of making the health service sustainable if people are not living in good accommodation or getting a good education for kids? Everything starts with a good home, and this country finally has to put that at the top of its priority list.
I'm going to pause one penultimate time there for a very quick comment. Biggest council housing building programme in the post-war period. Notice council housing, not social housing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is. It's one which we've touched on many times on this podcast, haven't we? You know, at the end of the day, buying second and third properties and renting them out for profit has been the best money spinner for anybody who has money over the last 30 years. And you kind of look at it and think, well, you know, there is both sides of the equation. You want to train more young people, take them out of the university route, teach them a trade, get them to build council houses, you know, reduce the burden on the cost for housing benefit. It's a sum that, you know, if anything, in Burnham's Sunshine Lollipops has actually given me some. That is a really good idea. That if big government doesn't bugger it up, could really make a difference.
Yes, something that perhaps will leave local authorities perhaps a little bit wary is the bit about we use vacant public land to reduce costs.
Yeah, but there's a bit that they've got to get over themselves, haven't they, Simon? Because there's that element of you know, what's your biggest problem? You know, what is your biggest challenge? Because you know it otherwise it just ends up in the too difficult bucket, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Let's.
yeah, but
Sorry. Let's.
just as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
very quick
Yeah. Yeah.
local arrangement, the Northern Quarter.
Mm.
When did we knock down the tricorn?
I don't know. 20 years ago, I think.
Decades ago.
Mm.
And what's the Northern Quarter? It's a big old space full of nothing.
Yes, but I mean, without going off topic, there was an abortive plan for a shopping centre, but that fell through because of the financial crash in 2008. And there's now a massive plan for urban regeneration to put in mixed development and high density housing. So
But
this is
again,
that's
without prolonging it, it went to rat shit in 2008. It's 2026. 18 years have passed. Nobody's living in a house.
no, but where was the money coming from to do it? If developers weren't doing it and councils didn't have the money to do it, as you keep saying, as perhaps I don't know whether you say it, but some might be fond of saying, you know, there isn't a manager. Let's play on because I know we're conscious for time and we want to hear it all.
Through this new approach, we will bring higher density residential development to our towns, and Number 10 North will be able to support all places to turn around those towns, their high streets and the local centres, increasing footfall on the high street and protecting more green spaces from development. To reinforce that, we will reform business rates to support pubs and high street businesses, businesses that bring social benefits to communities. And let me finish by saying this. Rather than being a marker of decline, shouldn't we make our high streets the new symbol of Britain's renaissance? Ours is a 10-year mission to raise people's living standards. I know people can't wait forever for change. I heard on doorsteps in Makerfield how people need a bit extra now to help with rising costs. I will do my very best to deliver it, and whilst not taking risks with the public finances, will seek to give Britain some breathing space as soon as I can. People need to be able to look forward to a night out or a holiday with the kids. People need hope. This brings me back to where I started and the stories told in this building of how ordinary people, right back to Peterloo 200 years ago here, changed a British state not built with them in mind. Our modern challenge is exactly the same. An economy which, from the mid-1980s onwards, has not been built with them in mind and instead has handed more to those who already have most and left people overpaying for the basics. If people in 1844 could form the cooperative movement in Rochdale to lower the price of food, then why can't we act now with similar courage to make life better? Imagine what things could be like if we succeed. Imagine what it would feel like to live in a country wired to work for ordinary people rather than against them. Imagine if all local areas could build homes people can afford to the point where they could guarantee one for everyone. Imagine if we could bring down the cost of energy for people and businesses and the good things that would come from that. Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart. I'll say it again. Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart. Well, imagine no more. Let's make it happen.
I mean, having said that he's elsewhere this week that he's not going to be calling a general election, that you'd be forgiven for thinking that was a
That's the election slogan already written, isn't it? I had my face in my hands in that
high
last bit.
streets.
He was doing so well. The high streets, yeah, because that's the thing. And then the other one that just had me smashing my head on the desk was the measure of society is a holiday with the kids. A holiday with the kids is £2.5 grand. So everybody having a spare couple of £100 every month after everything's paid and you live a normal lifestyle. I don't know when foreign holidays with the kids became an essential of life. But yeah, hope in every heart. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. The challenge for me, in summary, Simon, is a lot of this is about massive reform of the state. you know, and I'm being playful, but it's got a little bit of we're going to take the Elon Musk approach to reorganize. There's all this massive waste, and we'll go and sort it all out. And I know I'm being provocative, Simon, but I'm just the whole basis on it is about being able to reform the culture in Whitehall, and those of us that have been around strategic change for long enough knows that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I just can't see him changing that culture.
So interestingly enough, the word Whitehall appears 9 times in the speech.
It does.
What doesn't appear in the speech are anything talking about Donald Trump,
Nope.
or talking about beating Nigel Farage or beating reform. Doesn't mention net zero.
Nope.
Doesn't mention green policies or climate change. It does talk about energy, but in the usual
affordability
kind of context.
Yep.
And it talks about defence in the sense of that, those public procurement plans, in that sort of way. So I found that kind of interesting, as to what was and wasn't in it. Should we quickly kind of talk about how the Conservatives Reform and the Lib Dems responded to it. Should I very
Well,
quickly do that?
give us a very quick synopsis as to just how much they loved it.
Not very much. Not very much at all. Essentially, Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives went on about how large debt is as a share of GDP, and that the only way to fix this was low tax, simple regulation, and stable government and cheap energy. And if you don't fix that, basically nothing will grow. The economy will fail. And the 5 things that he needs to do would be to cut the cost of energy, get people working, cut the welfare bills, scrap the Employment Rights Act, cut taxes, slash burdensome regulation, and champion businesses, not more politicians. And
probably, I would say in 3 or 4 of those, they're on the same page. Let's look for consensus there.
Yeah, but I did find it. She was talking about a full 3 months without a government. But Parliament's going to be in recess after next week, so it's. Ed Davey was much shorter. Talking about questioning that there can't be a one-size-fits-all answer. That struggling families and cash-strapped councils desperately need real change and power. We urgently need to shift power out of Whitehall and into the hands of local communities. But it means
another agreement bell.
Listening to people, but the proof will be in the pudding. And Farage, basically, he released a video, but essentially talked about. Well, ask yourself: has devolution in London? Has devolution worked anywhere? Devolution in London with Mayor Sadiq Khan hasn't made London streets any safer, despite stats actually saying that they are safer. Devolution hasn't worked in Wales, hasn't given them a better NHS or education. No, they're worst in the country. And has devolution in Scotland cleaned up Scottish politics? He then took a pot shot at the SNP. Obviously, I guess forgetting the leader of...
Yeah. Everything's broken. How are you going to fix it? Not everything's broken.
Some whispers of a bit of collaboration, or a bit of we're roughly on the same page there, but the usual parties. I don't think anybody was expecting the Conservatives or Reform to say, "Oh, actually, he said having gone on about how crap Starmer is, and now that they're talking about replacing him, we should. This next guy looks absolutely fantastic. We're gonna shut up shop now." They weren't ever really going to say that, were they?
Shall I pull on the thread?
Go for it.
There was a thread.
Okay.
He truly believes what he's the main thread. The whole about collaboration, pulling together, facing the right direction. His first major policy has to be PR.
You think?
I think it would have to be, wouldn't it? Because you are never going to get consensus government in the current era, in the current climate, when it's an all or nothing first past the post system that will give somebody a majority.
Even if they've only got 30% of the vote, as we have now.
Yeah, the percentage of the vote is, but it's that element of once you win, and you've got 5 years to do what you want, really. Then you can throw away your manifesto, you can change, you can do whatever you want. You can go nuts for 5 years. And the mad thing is that Labour hasn't. So the thread for me in his collaborative working together, I would say if he truly believes that, then he's got to change the electoral system.
I as much as I'd love the electoral system to change, I can't see that there's a mandate for that. It's not in the manifesto. Unless you have a referendum, which would be kind of another diversion.
No, I would agree with you, but there's this element of how do you make the cultural change to consensus politics?
Yeah.
In the current environment, where what you've got at the moment, and maybe things are changing, maybe things are settling back down, where you have the far left and the far right who are creating the politics of division. It's that group over there, it's their fault. If we fix them, your life will be better. That's not the route to consensus politics, is it?
No, and it would, and as we talked about earlier on, I mean, I don't I thought it was interesting that he spent his time talking about what his diagnosis and his treatment was, rather than talking about 14 years or these guys over here are really awful, you don't want to listen to them. Instead, he made a case of why he's got the right and the better answers, which I think is a more convincing argument to be making, something that sadly has been missing. There's a fair bit of nuance there, so we shall see.
I think you're off if you're on the left and you're in the centre and have a little bit of nostalgia for industrial Britain. There's something. If you want to look for the positives, you can find there's something in there for everybody. There was even stringent fiscal rules for me. There was all sorts of lovely, fluffy, lefty stuff in there for you. Everyone's a winner in Mr. Burnham's speech. Time, as they say,
Yes.
will tell.
So we shall see. So just to refresh people's memory very, very quickly, the leadership contest opens on the 8th of July and closes to all parts of it at 6 p.m. on the 16th. If there are no other contenders, there will be a press conference on the 17th where we're assuming the only contender, if there is only one contender,
All hail the king.
is a valid nomination, then they will be declared the winner, and whoever, well, assuming at this point, because it seems unlikely it'll be anyone else, assuming that's Burnham, he's then made Prime Minister on the 20th.
Absolutely. So look forward to the 20th, King of the North.
Yes.
But you've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And I've been Simon Sainsbury. Please do make sure to give us a like, follow, or a subscribe wherever you're catching us. We'd love to hear what you've got to say actually about that speech and about what Burnham had to say and about how that works out. Do catch us. Our next episode will be PMQs on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Starmer's penultimate episode of PMQs before the regeneration into the next Doctor. Oh no, sorry, that's a different thing. So do catch us then, and we'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, follow and comment on Facebook, or comment and subscribe on YouTube. Find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, X, YouTube, Threads, LinkedIn.